Today's a great day because I just got another project in the mail. Now typically, installing a car lift is left to the professionals, but in this video, I'm going to do it myself, with the help of some friends and family, of course. Now I need to clear some space to put in the new lift. And here's a car you guys told me not to get rid of, the super rare Infiniti M56, one of the rarest Infinitis ever made. In these clips, that's exactly what I'm not doing. I'm actually loading this thing up on the trailer to take it to the scrapyard. And for those of you that didn't watch the previous video on this car, the frame on this thing is absolutely destroyed. The motor was really the only thing that I was after. The rest of it, I just planned to part it out. Time coming. I've been running this business for about 4 years, and it's finally time that I got a lift. The company that makes this lift is called Cat Tool. You can find them on eBay or Amazon. I actually purchased this for a little over 2,000 bucks. It's an 11,000 pound symmetrical 2-post lift. I went ahead and laid all the parts out just to make sure we weren't missing anything. And based on the quality of this lift, this has to be one of the best lifts that you can get around the $2,000 price range. I'll pop up a couple pictures of some other lifts that are the same price as this, and they look pretty sketchy. On some of them, the posts tend to bend, especially when you don't have the clear floor lift. The clear floor means it has the beam that goes up atop instead of at the bottom. And basically the reason for that bar is to house the cables and also the hydraulic lines. But anyways, I'm pretty excited for this. We're gonna get this put up real soon. Went ahead and cleared out this area. There's a bunch of cars and parts here. And I also marked out the spots where I'm going to be putting the posts. The idea that I found was to actually just make a template of the bottom of these posts. They need to be spaced out 134.6 inches. It had it in millimeters, and I went ahead and transferred it over to inches. So that's pretty much where it's going to be seated. I would like to seat it a little bit closer this way, but I don't want it to be too far out in the walkway. You're going to come in through the garage right here, pull right into the bay. It's going to be pretty easy access. This is only a 10-foot garage door. It's not very wide, so for bigger trucks and everything, it might be a little bit difficult, but for small cars, which is mostly what I work on, this will be perfect. But anyways, this entire kit weighs 14,500 pounds, so I'm not exactly sure how heavy each post is, but we're gonna attempt to put them up. We gotta do what we gotta do. Let's go ahead and set these posts up. And here comes the scariest part, standing up these super heavy posts and moving them to where they need to be. Now it looks like we're moving this thing around pretty easily, but keep in mind, the bottom section of this post where it houses all the mechanical stuff is about 90% of the weight. The cardboard helps us slide this thing around a lot easier and also protects the concrete from scratches. Definitely a solid move. While I yank this thing across the shop, Tyler keeps the post upright so it doesn't fall and kill us. Now it's time to double check our measurements and make sure these posts are in the right spot before we keep building them up. Then we need to extend the post with these heavy-duty extension pieces. They feel like they weigh 100 pounds, so we decided it's best to lay the posts down, install them, and then lift the posts back up. That idea seemed to be a lot easier. From there, it was tightening 8 bolts, 4 in the front and 4 in the back. We make sure to use Loctite on all the threads, just for extra safety. Now for the crossover piece. Since this is a clear floor lift, this piece goes at the very top. This will protect the cables and the hydraulic lines and also stiffen up the top of this lift, which is the reason why if you have tall enough ceilings, always go with the clear lift.
Oh fuck, it's way up there.
With these short 6-foot ladders being the only thing we have, we needed to rethink our plan. So this is what we came up with. Tall heights, wobbly ladder, and non-locking casters. What could go wrong? Now it was just securing the 4 bolts on either side, and again, Loctiting everything. Next, we needed to install the safety bar and its mechanism on the crossover piece we just put on. The safety bar prevents you from lifting a car or truck high enough to where it crashes into the crossover bar. This is definitely not a necessary piece, but it's nice to have just to prevent any accidents. Next, it was time to bolt up the hydraulic pump assembly. Luckily, the mounting bracket was on this post, which is exactly where I wanted to put it. With all the structural parts bolted together, it was time to install our balancing cables. These cables help keep the arms level on both sides. That way, when you're lifting the car, it's not leaning to one side. Next, the hydraulic line. Well, it is the next day here, and we pretty much got all of the heavy lifting done yesterday. I went and checked the start time and the end time of when I was recording yesterday, and it only took us about 3 hours to put this up. I would say each post, including this little extension piece, probably weighs a little over 500 pounds each. This cross piece here wasn't too heavy at all, but it was a little bit difficult to install because we had such short ladders. We also got the cables and the hydraulic lines mounted across the top. And we also got the safety bar installed as well. That basically stops the lift from pushing a vehicle up whenever its roof or the tallest point touches that. Right there is where the switch is. I actually had to relocate it. It was on the other side right there. So I put it on this side. Now, whenever something touches this, you can hear that click. And that is going to shut off the lift from continuing to lift up. On the other side, it just has a bolt with a little piece of rubber tubing. So it doesn't really move much, it's mainly just the middle. As for routing all the cables and hydraulic lines, the cables are pretty much gonna go underneath these little slots, and the hydraulic line is gonna go through all these little slots they have welded in. Here's what it looks like on the end. As you can see, the hydraulic line and the safety bar wiring go over this piece where the pulley is. It's probably not the best spot for it. I'm probably gonna use some zip ties or something to kind of prevent this from rubbing on anything. We definitely don't want to rub a hole in this hydraulic line. But once you get the lines routed through here, it's going to go through a little slot right there. And then from then on out, it's going to go from the outside of this post. The safety bar wiring is going to be wired into our electrical box right there. This hydraulic line is actually the straight piece. On the other side is a 90 degree, so that's how you know which side goes where. The 90 degree is going to go on that side. The straight piece is going to go here. Then from here on out, we're going to have a T-fitting. That's going to be plumbed into the pump. And the other side of the T is going to go down to our other hydraulic. As for the other side, this is how we have it. Goes through this little hole, and then it's going to be plumbed into our hydraulic down there. As for the safety bars, it's actually pretty simple. This one is going to go in like this. This will be the right side on this post. And the other one is going to go down here, through the front, and around a pulley down there. And then it's going to pop up just like this through that hole there. And on this side, it's basically the same. The pulley is actually on this side. So it's going to be basically the same thing, but the opposite on this side. Another thing I should mention is we could not get the locking washers on. They protruded out far enough to where we couldn't really get enough threads on the nut. So we decided not to use the locking washers and basically just Loctite everything. And just to make sure I can visually see if anything comes loose, went ahead and used a paint marker and marked the nut and the bolt and the frame just to make sure nothing comes loose. And here's basically the only remaining parts that we have. I also picked up some hydraulic fluid right here. It's AW32. It calls for N32. I couldn't find any of that, but I think this will work and it's the closest thing that I could find. As for mounting these anchors, they're gonna need a pretty big hole. They're 3/4 of an inch, so I got a 3/4 inch drill bit on the hammer drill. Make sure it's for concrete. We're gonna get our holes drilled to a little over 5 inches. That should be deep enough to hammer in these anchor bolts and get them tightened up. But anyways, it's kind of crazy having one of these in my shop. I've always wanted one. I think it's in the perfect location. It looks like it belongs there, and I can't wait to finish it up. As per the instructions, I'm putting Teflon tape on all the threads of the hydraulic lines. All right, so I don't know if you guys caught that, but my feed line was actually on the other side. It was over here, and this was actually a drain port. So I went ahead and took all of the fittings off just to kind of inspect this and make sure that everything was working as it should. And I kind of found out how this thing works. If you look down there, you can see that little metal piece. That's actually a screen. That's the filter. That would be the feed line, and the one to the left is actually the drain back. So the feed is going to go out to the motor. It's going to do its thing. And then it's going to come out to the left there. You can barely see it, but it's going to come out right there. And then right there is actually another drain back. This port here is going to be for regulating the pressure to make sure this pump isn't lifting more than what it should. So the piece that we need for that is this one right here. This is going to regulate the hydraulic pressure to make sure we aren't going to blow up our pump. It's adjustable, but I would just leave it how it is. So that is going to go just like this, which was in the correct spot to begin with. Then you're gonna see this hole, this is nothing. And then this one is where they have the drain. So that's not gonna work for us because we need the feed right here. So the regulated pressure is gonna come through this hole, and then it's gonna go to the right there. And so the feed line is gonna be this piece right here. It's open all the way, and this is just gonna connect onto our line. So this piece is actually going to go right here. And then our next piece is a super important piece. This is going to regulate the flow. So depending on where you put this, if we put it right here, the flow is going to come from the right, and then it's going to drain back into the left. So you want to make sure you have this going this way. So if you put this fitting on the left side, it would make the direction of the flow be the opposite, meaning it would go from left to right. And what's going to happen then if you do that is you're going to be able to lift your car all the way up, and the fluid is never going to be able to drain back into the tank. And then you're going to be stuck with your car 6 feet in the air and not be able to get it down without cracking one of the hydraulic lines loose and spraying high pressure fluid all over your shop. So definitely don't do that. Keep this fitting on the right side. And the way that this works, as you can see, when pressure hits this ball, it's going to push it open, and it's going to allow the fluid to come through the sides. Because that ball is spring loaded, it's not going to allow the fluid to go back into these holes and back out through that one. So this is going to go right here, and it's also going to prevent our feed lines from draining back. And then basically everything is going to go back the same way. So this is our button right here. This is going to allow for the drain back. So this is going to go here, and then our plug is going to go on this side now. And this is also an important piece because this is going to regulate how fast and slow this thing drains back. So this is the adjustment right here. With that all situated, it was time to drill our holes. This lift uses 5 anchors per post, so we have 9 more to do. Now to keep the post level up and down, I use these automotive body shims that I got from Harbor Freight. They were super cheap, and it came with a ton of different sizes so we can get that perfect level. With the lift finally bolted to the ground, it was time to get these cables put on. Next, the 4 arms, which were super simple. Now it's time to call in a certified qualified electrician to do the wiring. It's a new day today. The electrician came early this morning and got our breaker put in. It's a 30 amp. I'm also running my compressor off of it as well. The electrician said that the 14 gauge pigtail that was on this was actually okay to use. This thing wasn't pulling enough amps to use anything more. Even though it is a 220 volt, the 14 gauge was fine, but I did upgrade it with some 12 gauge. I ran this solid 12 gauge wire. It's this corrugated 3/8 piping all the way up on top of the truss there
and then down this main post and into the same circuit as our air compressor. So I did move the air compressor up to here. The reason that we plugged into this one is the circuit that this is connected to is actually 10 gauge. Once I get a bigger air compressor, I was planning on running off of that one. So that hence why we have the 30 amp breaker instead of like a 20. So I'm not exactly sure what kind of plug I'm gonna use. So I just covered this up and then labeled this 220. That way everybody knows it's 220. The way that you pretty much wire this up is the neutral wire, which is white. That's this big plug right here. That is now going to be a power wire. So you're gonna have two 110 power wires, and then the ground is gonna be the green or the solid copper. So you can pretty much wire into these 110 plugs into 220 just by doing that, and then getting a larger breaker. You just wanna make sure that your circuit wire is large enough gauge, it can provide enough amps for whatever you're trying to power. So I did have to clear out some insulation here, and it's pretty much running all the way up and into our lift. And the way I pretty much cable managed everything was I used these little magnets that have a little hook on them. And over on this side, it's pretty much the same thing. I think that was a pretty good idea to use those. You can get them at Harbor Freight for I think about $2 for a pack of 4. And then as it comes down here, got zip ties holding the bump stop and the power wire. Got 2 more right there just to keep everything tidy. So what I did right here was I pretty much cut the aluminum insulation, and I got 2 large heat shrinks. I put them over this just to kind of make it look OEM. And then I fit both of them through the little grommet right there. So I did just a quick time lapse on how to wire this in. It's super simple. This pretty much gets plugged in exactly how the pigtails are, and then one of these goes to the button, and then the other one goes to the other end where that button was. You can slow the video down, or you can look on the Cat Tool video of them when they wired this in. It's extremely simple. And then we filled up the fluid with the AW32. I got that from Menards. It was about $40 for a 5-gallon. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I've already tested this out just to make sure everything was good on it. And I actually have one issue that I'll mention at the end, which was kind of a pain in the ass, but I got it fixed. But without further ado, let's press this green button. So if you guys hear that, that is the locks actually locking in to these little slots right here. So as you can hear, this one's popping and then this one's popping slightly after that. So the only way to really fix that is to put a big plate underneath this to slightly raise it up. It's off by such a minor amount that even when I try to just barely touch this one locks and then this one locks like almost immediately after. So see that? It's hard not to lock both of them at the same time. So this one is just gonna be a minuscule amount lower than this side, which really isn't gonna be a big deal. All right, so this is about as high as it can go. This is about 6'5.5". So like I mentioned, this is as high as the hydraulics will lift it. You don't want to have it sitting like this for very long because the hydraulics will compress. You want to have it sitting on the locks. We're going to have to lower this level here until it locks into place. So let's go ahead and do that. So about right there. And just to show you guys, this is 72.5. So if you're 6 foot or shorter, this is probably a good lift for you. If you're any taller than that, you're gonna have to kind of bend down a little bit. I'm already thinking about getting some larger risers. I could also make them. I know they sell them on Amazon. I'm not exactly sure if they're universal, but I think I can live with this for now. And then to lower all the way down, as you can see when I press this lever, it doesn't go any lower. That's because the latches are locked. And if you go over here and try to pull the latches, they're kind of locked in there because they're sitting on them. So you actually got to raise it up just a little bit. Just like that. And then it'll come around here and pull this. Just like that. And then this side. Just like that. And now it will go down. You don't have to remember to pull that latch again to lock it back in place. As soon as I start lifting it up again, it locks again. And it's going pretty slow right now because there's no weight on it. But once you put a vehicle on there, it'll go a little bit quicker. And if you want to slow it down or speed it up, there's actually a little valve right here. It's the drain back valve that I mentioned before when I took this all apart. you can adjust that to make it go faster or slower. And another thing too, you can see the arms don't move, but once they hit the ground, it will lift up this spring mechanism right here and allow this to rotate. So now I understand this lift, I know how it works. I think the only way to test it out is to get Big Bertha on it and see if it can lift it. Oh my gosh, that is crazy. I'm gonna have to get used to walking underneath that.
I'll bet.
That is crazy. Wow. Well, it's been a couple months now, and I gotta say, I'm pretty happy with this lift. So far, I haven't had any issues with it whatsoever, and it's saved me a ton of time when I go to work on cars. By the way, if you guys are OG subscribers, you will know this car. And if you watched 2 videos ago, you'll know exactly what I'm about to do to this thing. Let's just say we might be adding a couple more cylinders. Anyways, back to the lift. Like I mentioned, no issues whatsoever, but I'm gonna go back to when I said this. And I actually have one issue that I'll mention at the end, which was kind of a pain in the ass, but I got it fixed. So when I said that, I was actually referring to the locking mechanism here on the left side. And to be able to see and access that metal lever right there, we're gonna have to pop off this plastic cover. Now we're gonna have to raise the lift all the way to right here. So what this does, this is actually the catch. This is what locks onto, that's what locks onto those little channels right there and makes that clicking sound. There's a spring that was up at the top that you guys probably saw when I was raising it. And that's what keeps this thing locked in there until you pull it out just like that. But this was too damn tight. It had no play in it. So it wasn't actually latching when it was going up. And when I did press this in all the way, it would latch. When I tried to pull this, it wouldn't unlatch. So what I had to do was, there's actually a bolt that went through here. And when I tried to pull it out, it was super rusted and it just completely broke off. And that is this right here. It was in just like that. And as soon as I loosened it, it completely broke off. So what I did was put a new stud in there, and to get the right amount of play in here so that it latches and unlatches good, I went ahead and just hand tightened this nut and put a little spot weld right there to keep it from backing out and keeping that right amount of play in that latch. And then this one was perfect over here. I had no issues with it. But after fixing that issue, I really had no other issues with it. Again, this is one of the cheaper Chinese lifts that you can get. If I got a bin pack or a rotary lift or any one of those name brands, I would be pretty disappointed if I had to do something like that. And that's just the quality control of these lifts. This is probably a rare circumstance. Most of the time when you get them out of the box, they'll probably work just fine. But if you're worried about welding and fixing little stuff like that, you should probably get yourself a welder before you get a lift. That's kind of backwards if you do it the other way around. And I didn't show this before, but here's the model and serial number for this lift that I have. Again, I'll leave the Amazon link in the description for this. I can't speak for all the Chinese lifts. I can only speak for this one. And I gotta say, I'm extremely happy with it. I'm already considering possibly putting the same lift in this area. That way I have 2 of them angled in. It actually saves you room because
you can put a car on the lift it up, and put another car underneath it. So if you ever thought about getting the lift or you work on cars quite often, I can't recommend getting one ASAP because I've been wasting time without having this lift. I should have gotten it as soon as we built the shop. It absolutely saves your knees, saves your back, and it's extremely easy to do oil changes and just simple stuff where you need to lift the car up for a little bit. Think about this, the more time that you wait on getting the lift, the more time you are wasting not having it. Any job that involves taking the wheels off, suspension, or underneath the car, you can get done with that job at about half the time if you were doing it on jack stands. So long story short, save yourself some time and get yourself a lift today. With all that being said, I appreciate you guys watching till the end. In the next video, we're gonna be working on this thing, so stay tuned.